I love like the typical thought of like, everybody wants to be a leader.
Yeah.
You walk into your engineering class and you say, how many of you want to be a project manager? Every single person like puts their hand up, right? I think the one thing that is maybe missed in discussions is like, you can be a leader without being a manager. Like you can be somebody who's a technical lead who, again, leads the company on like extremely difficult endeavors, and like you don't need to be a manager.
Yep. That's a good point.
Welcome back to the workshop presented by Aplin Martin. On today's episode, I'm joined by two gentlemen who are at the forefront of the Aplin Martin land development team from the Kelowna office. Infrastructure planning lead and project manager Jordan Beach and engineering lead Josh Graff. Having both grown up within the Kelowna region and been with the company for nearly 10 years, we dive into the past, current, and future state of the land development scene in Kelowna and what makes that market unique versus other parts of the country. It was awesome to hear Jordan and Josh share their respective paths and stories within the industry, and I hope you all enjoy. I'd like to start this episode with a little bit of a brief background about yourselves. Position, where did you guys grow up, where you went to school, how many years have you guys both been in the industry?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for 11 years, almost 12 years now. I guess I should start with position, but engineering lead for the Kelowna office. Pretty much grew up in Kelowna. Moved from the Lower Mainland when I was 2, so spent pretty much all my time here, all my time in the Okanagan, and went to school there, local boy, and yeah.
Have you ever thought about leaving the Kelowna area, or is it just once you were settled, you were?
I definitely have thought about leaving it. I mean, it's a pretty hard place to leave. I did do my, the mandatory stint in Fort Mac, which was terrible.
I feel like everybody has that experience, and like eventually they get the opportunity to go somewhere else. They do, and then they're like, "Oh, this is a big problem."
Yeah. I mean, it would have been better.
Back, please.
Yeah, it would have been better if it was like stint in Victoria or Toronto or somewhere nice. But it was like, no, let's just go to Fort Mac and try that out. I'd be like, no, it's worse than Kelowna.
I'm good.
Yeah. So on me, interesting one is like Josh and I have like almost the exact same story. Like my family is originally from the Lower Mainland, came up to Kelowna when I was fairly young. So basically born and raised, did my schooling there, did UBCO out there, been in engineering for 10-ish years now. I didn't hop back into consulting right away out of school. Went to construction was the choice I made, and similar to Josh's comment, I didn't go to Fort Mac, but I travel kind of all around in BC, and then just decided, hey, like I want to be in one place, I want to be home, and hopped into consulting, and that was the way to go. So
that's awesome to hear. Now both being local guys to, again, I guess BC and Kelowna specifically, did you guys have any influences into getting into engineering and the construction industry right out of school, or was there somebody that influenced you to get into that at school?
I mean, kinda. The construction industry, like my dad did construction. My wife's dad owned a housing company, framing housing company for a long time. He's retired now, and so with that, I mean, I always liked construction. I actually graduated high school early, did a an apprenticeship in construction, work for that, and I think it was just beyond, doing menial tasks or caulking in minus 20-degree weather. I just kind of I was always really interested about the design of stuff. So that kind of pushed me towards engineering. And I think it was happenstance. Like in high school, I thought I was going to be like an aircraft mechanic or something like that. And I just messed around and from construction realized that I liked engineering. So
the actual design of how the things come to be.
Yeah. Well, and like even like playing with Lego as a kid or stuff like that, right? Like I didn't realize that I'm not nearly creative enough to do architecture, so that was out the window.
Yeah, you're like colors and shapes and numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers and math.
I love that answer, and it's just like I feel like every single person says, "Hey, like I like Lego, I like building stuff," and it's like that's how I'm here. It's like all engineers wanted to build bridges, and for some reason they decided not to do that somewhere along the way.
Or they wanted to do the structural design and realize that it's not as exciting as being civil. I don't know even why civil is exciting. It's like you're literally designing sanitary pipes and stuff underground and playing with dirt. Like it's not that exciting. I don't know why.
It's hilarious whenever people ask me what I do. I'm like, so reluctant to start telling them, oh yeah, like I designed pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm boring myself just talking about it, but for some reason I love doing it every day. Like it's
all the stuff that all the stuff that you don't see yet. That's what we do.
That's what I like to think of it. And same thing when people ask me, it's like you're given like all these different puzzle pieces because every site's kind of different, and it's almost like building a different puzzle every day. And at least that way, it kind of sort of describes what it is because all the sites are different. But
yeah.
Sorry, Jordan. How did you have any influences as well to get into
to be honest, no. I have an uncle that was an engineer, but honestly, I never really pushed him and even asked him about it. Like, it was just something that, kind of naturally fell into through school. One thing that, jarred my memory as I was thinking about this was like in grade 9, I was just in science class. We were doing Bohr models, figuring out the galaxy and stuff. And the teacher was like, hey, if anyone's interested in going into honors science next year, like come and have a chat with me. And I like end of that class, I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, let's have a chat. And she was like, yeah, like you don't apply yourself well enough. Like you probably can't do this. I was like, what? Excuse me.
Chopped you right away.
So I think I took that as a challenge, and following that, like I took everything in high school, took every honors class, and like ended up like being super successful in all of them. And, the physics stuck, and, it was something that was an easy transition coming out to university. So,
and naturally, when you got promoted to INFP lead, you immediately emailed her and was like,
by the way, in
there
case
it
you
is.
need this.
Yeah.
That's what I definitely want to get back to after when we talk about leaders and what makes one. But I guess before we get into that, I want to know, again, you guys both were saying you've been with Aplin again around 7 to 8 years. How did you guys specifically get to the company?
So for me, as I was saying before, I was in construction, wanted to get home. So realistically, me getting into Aplin, I said, hey, I'm done with being out of town. Said, hey, I'm done. I'm heading back home. Put in my notice and everything, and then didn't really have a plan, to be honest. Ended up basically reaching out to every engineering firm in Kelowna, seeing for bites, had some interviews and things, and eventually met up with Ben, and he pretty much sold me immediately. Been with it ever since. So
Awesome.
Mine, when I was actually graduating college, they used to do this career fair thing, and one of the employers, let's say there, told the person teaching a Civil 3D lab at that time, he's like, hey, grab me one of your guys that's really good at Civil 3D and bring him to me. And the teacher, he's a gruff guy, almost like grabbed me by the ear and dragged me over. And the person I was talking to was Ben. And so at that time, he was working with Focus. And so, Ben's pretty enigmatic. He obviously sold Jordan. He did the exact same thing to me, right? And so started working with Ben at Focus. And then when we were kind of bought out and the company structure kind of changed a little bit, we were both kind of looking to jump ship. And so I followed Ben over to Aplin.
Awesome. So it sounds like there are a lot of different characteristics about Ben that you guys both had liked and that you saw in him.
Yeah.
And now knowing that you guys are both leads of different divisions within Aplin, can you guys give me your definition of what is a leader and what makes a good leader?
I think like above all, the biggest thing to me is that, you take responsibility. You don't just always pass it off and be like, oh, that's so-and-so's fault, right? You actually, even if it, it doesn't really matter whose fault it was, you're still usually the face to either the client or whoever you're dealing with, or even just to any outside parties. And you're like, that's our issue. It's our fault. Taking responsibility for whatever happens in that way. And in that, I think that shows that you're supporting your team. No, I don't want to say like protecting your team, but kind of helping them build their confidence, because you're always just throwing them to the wolves and they're not going to grow. And I don't think you're going to be an effective leader if you don't actually empower the people under you.
Yeah, one of the things that like really sticks with me is like when somebody's willing to put their back on the line to support you without you even knowing it.
Yeah.
Like somebody's in another room when they could easily say, oh, this person, they fucked this up or whatever. Yeah. They say, no, like this person's like doing a great job. Like, it's my issue. It's not like somebody that will be willing to go to bat for you and that will provide you with support. Like, I think that's really what a leader is. And I know people talk about like management versus leadership, and like when you're dealing with leaders, it's the personal feel. Like you're dealing with real people, people aren't numbers. Like, it's not a spreadsheet.
Yeah, each person has their own way that gets them to tick, and it's almost like tuning into that to what makes somebody within your team to be successful.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even going back to, like the behind the scenes, supporting them and doing that stuff. I think it's also when there are the wins is that person's not taking all the credit for it, right?
Yeah.
They're actually being like, oh, we won this because of this person, this person, and this person, and putting them to the forefront rather than just taking all the credit and hiding them behind the curtain, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
Awesome.
totally agree.
And again, continuing to talk about leaders, what type of skills do you look for in, say, somebody that you've worked with or underneath you, part of your team, that will make a next great leader? What are some things that you're able to see in somebody and say, this person I think will be able to take on a certain role in the future?
Yeah, I definitely see it manifest in a lot of the people that we deal with on the day-to-day. And I think it's one of the things that, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, that makes Kelowna really successful is like, you see the ambition in some of these young faces, and like you see like people like they wanna learn, like they wanna make a difference, like they wanna do all these things, and it's not like they're not just there for the paycheck and go home and be done with it. Like they're there to make a difference, and you can see it immediately.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like the one thing that I find where I guess it also depends on what role they're going to take. If it's a technical role and they're really invested in that, then it's like, obviously you can look at, are they technically sound? Do they have a lot of skills that way? Then that's perfect. But if you're talking about to grow them into a future leader, I think the one thing is, when you have a conversation with them and you can tell that they're good at talking to people, they already have kind of a little bit of basis of soft skills. Because I think with the interesting thing with leadership is that, I mean, it's really is developing those soft skills. And there's some people that you can tell have it right away. Yeah. And other people will take some time to develop. Doesn't mean that they can't, because I mean, to be honest, like I think that I used to be, and I'm still working on some of it, but my people skills sucked. It's
like people hated me when I go to the bar.
Yeah, like I always classified myself as an introvert, right? And like I tend to try and make up for that a little bit by just being very loud. Okay. And that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But that's a huge thing, right? Because especially with leadership or project management or whatever, when you're talking to municipalities or clients and trying to develop relationships and get business, it's that if you're kind of just standing in the corner not saying anything, no one's going to come up to talk to you, right? So you have to be able to go up and talk to people and have that personality, which is tough.
Yeah. I love like the typical thought of like, everybody wants to be a leader.
Yeah.
You walk into your engineering class and you say, how many of you want to be a project manager? Every single person like puts their hand up, right? I think the one thing that is maybe missed in discussions is like, you can be a leader without being a manager. Like you can be somebody who's a technical lead who, again, leads the company on like extremely difficult endeavors, and like you don't need to be a manager.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can even say like that. I think that also extends to really the ability to read the room, whether that's again in a meeting with a client or municipal perspective, or for your team, being like, be able to tell like, are these guys burnt out? Is this a serious meeting? If I crack a joke, is that going to make things better? Or should I just keep this very technical? Are the people here in this room not in the mood to do that, right? So I think that's pretty key as well.
Yeah, being able to just take a step back and actually analyze what's happening versus just coming in. I know, look at engineering and consulting is very analytical. Like everyone's so focused on, okay, here's the answer all the time. A plus B gets me to C.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes that's not the way, especially when you're dealing with people and personalities, right?
Yeah. Well, and you see the people that come in like a bull in a china shop, right? And they're like, we're going to do it my way and this way. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it also doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think in the short term, it can work. Like they get their goals done. Like people, they feel reluctant, but they get the work done or whatever. But then 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line, like nobody wants to deal with this person, right? Like,
exactly, because you don't feel, not that you wouldn't feel appreciated, but it's just so much and so often that you do forget that after work, everyone does have lives and they do have things to go back to, right? So you're constantly being hammered all the time.
Yeah.
So now I want to move on to certain sacrifices that maybe you guys have seen by leaders above you, or that you guys have personally had to take in order to get to these technical leads where you guys are now.
Yeah, I think like the easy answer that, obviously would come to mind with most people is just strict sacrifice of hours, spending, evenings, weekends, things like that to make sure that things are getting done. I think the one that, might be a little bit less known is the mental impact. Like, you go home after you have a super long, stressful day, you've been working your brain like crazy. Like, you don't have the skills to, adequately deal with like your partner, your friends. Like, I think like you really need to figure out a way that you can unwind and then make sure that, when you're fully utilized that way, that you're not impacting your personal life, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I have much to add on that. That's pretty bang on. You should like lead people or something.
Yeah, finding a way, you almost say, to cope with, I want to say, like, the work stress, as like finding a way that, like, again, like a healthy way to do something that is able to make sure you're 110% full the next day, right? Because the way I like to think about it is, when you go into an office, you don't know what somebody's dealt with that morning, that previous night, right? So you at least want to be able to make sure that you have a positive attitude so that they can come in and also have a positive attitude, because you don't know, again, what people have gone through before, and if, hey, you don't hold the door open for them and they come in, they're a little bit more pissed off than when they were there already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also leads itself to making sure that people have a good work-life balance too, right? Because as much as, everyone, wants to say that, work is work and your personal life is your personal life, but it plays a huge impact. If you're coming home and you're burnt out and you can't, interact with your partner or your kids or whoever, right? Then your personal life is going to take a turn, and then at some point that's still going to affect your work life.
Yeah, eventually that's going to compound.
No one's
and then you can't come in 100% the next day, right?
Yeah. So it's a big thing, right? And I mean, fortunately, you run into people working long hours when they're doing design work, and they're thinking like, I'm going to put in the work, and then when I get to a management position, it's going to be better. And
no, because you have more responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. So it's learning to deal with that early on.
Yeah, you definitely can't commit yourself to just doing that all the time, because then like your only solution to a problem is to put in more time, right? And when you have a big team, like, you're one person, you can only do so much. Like, you can't get everything done yourself, so you need to figure out strategies that you can use to get these things done, right?
So that's a good topic that you brought up, strategies and teams. I'd like to know, I guess, from each of you, how it's felt to grow within Kelowna from 7 to 8 years ago when you guys first started to now being leads into the office size where you guys are now. How's it felt to grow not only within your own roles, but the office at the same time?
It's been pretty crazy, to be honest, because I mean, it's grown really fast, and I mean, I think until you kind of pose that question, I don't think I've ever stopped to think about it, because it's just been like, it's just been the natural progression of things, and as leadership in the company is changing, and there's people needing to step up, then it's just like, okay, well, this is the next logical thing and the next logical thing, and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's been like a super exciting thing, because it's I'd like to say, I mean, obviously a little bit, I hope, is part of our skills and our ability, but there's also a decent portion where it's like we're also in a really good time in the company where there is, I don't want to call it a power vacuum, but there's these opportunities opening up, right? And we're in the right place and right time, but it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is just the office has developed at the same rate that we have, right? Like when I started, and when probably Josh started before me, like, we were taking on these tiny little projects. We're doing 2-lot subdivisions and things like that, which I would mention, like, when I started, I'd fucking no clue. Like, I was assigned a 2-lot subdivision by Ben, and like I understood like where the utilities and stuff had to go, but like I hop into CAD and I'm like, what are these guys? What is happening? But building from there, like, us as an office developed kind of at the same rate that us as individuals were, in that we were taking on more responsibilities. We were also taking on more projects, bigger projects at the same time. So it was extremely organic, to be honest.
Yeah.
And adding on to that, how cool has it been then to see Kelowna grow as well with the projects that you guys have done?
I think it's been awesome, because I mean, like, even leading what Jordan said, like, it's not only seeing the office grow, but it's also seeing the projects grow into more complex projects, more kind of exciting projects, right? And I mean, like, the small projects are still great, right? Because you still get to do some really cool projects, but it is nice sometimes to be like, if you're diving into a multi-phase development that's doing all these community amenities and stuff like that, it's like, that's really cool. And they usually come with larger problems that require more advanced solutions, right? So that's really interesting to work through.
It's a big shift too, because like when we bring on new staff, new hires and things, they're working on this 100-lot subdivision. They're not working on like, you know, one little infill property, like, and it's very different in terms of the way that you need to approach and train people.
Yeah, you're almost jumping on a moving train, but again, that's just what it is, I guess, when you're jumping on somewhere that's also growing. And like you mentioned just before, there are certain challenges, obviously, with continuous growth and within your roles and within your office as well. Can you guys speak to some of the challenges you guys have faced currently and are facing currently with the new roles while trying to grow at the same time?
I don't know. I think the biggest one for me is shifting from that more technical aspect to, you know, a personal aspect where you're stepping back from projects and being less involved in the day-to-day, and now you are dealing with people. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, I think I'm still, you know, learning every day about how to deal with certain things and stuff like that, right? But that's been the biggest challenge that I've seen, and it's just really different because I never thought I'd be in that position. I mean, even going to school, I was like, I never want to be a boss. Like, put me in a corner and let me do this.
let me type away.
Yeah. So, and then I don't know, maybe it's being just pushed or led along. But eventually around the way, someone was like, hey, you know, you should maybe think about doing this. You're not that bad at it, right? So that's been a really interesting one.
Yeah, some of the challenges for me are a little bit different from Josh. Hopping into my role, our department kind of services everyone in the company. So we work across all the offices in Canada here. So one of the big things for me was adapting to the change of, you know, we're working in person, we're dealing with people. I can yell across the office at Josh and say, hey, like, why is this not working? Yeah, but when you have team members that are everywhere, how do you work and foster your culture? How do you build yourselves as a team to collaborate better with each other? It's a very different lens.
It comes across different when you yell at someone over Teams than
Caps versus the person. Yeah, I can be like, I can just underscore that. Yeah. That's good that you guys still collaborate within the office. I want to now ask, what does success look like for your group and on a personal level?
Money, lots of it.
Seconded. And I mean, I think from like, obviously, you know, it comes down to money. That's the reason why we all work. We obviously do love our jobs, and that's great, but I don't think we'd be here if we didn't get paid a little bit. So I think more like success as a team. I think that comes more to maintaining kind of the trust and you know, that open collaborative behavior and relationships that we have in the office, and because that finds that, you know, again, the end of the day, we can deliver projects better, more efficient, faster, run to less problems, and it translates to more money for all of us.
Yeah, and being able to being able to provide, like, again, your employees and your coworkers with a better standard of living for them to provide.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like the big success metric is a good culture, right? Like it's been our biggest driver in Kelowna, and the way that we've been successful is we have great team members. Like, we can rely on each other. We know that, hey, like, I'm in a bind. Like, Josh, I need you to help me on Sunday here. Like, he's there. Like, it's one of those interesting experience that you know, kind of grew our synergy a little bit. Like, we had a newer coworker that was having some troubles with a project in the Lower Mainland here, actually, and you know, we had nothing to do with the project, and he's like, guys, I have no idea what to do. Like, I need help. And like, Josh and I were both there like all Sunday, like, working on this thing that wasn't our problem. And we know that, you know, any of the people on our teams would do the same thing for us, and so would our leaders, right? So
yeah, and I think the best thing to do to maintain that, and because you kind of, like, I know Derek talks about this all the time, about, you know, building the trust in your team and having that trust to then be efficient as a team. I think the big important thing for that is, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, like those team building events we do, right? Like, you know, driving in an RV for 6 hours to Whistler and then 6 hours back.
You'll really get to know it first.
You bond a lot. But I mean, that's important, because then when you get back to the office, you guys are talking about the stories and whatever stupid thing that, you know, myself or
you forgot to mention driving down and then getting rear-ended on the way there.
That'll test somebody.
Yeah, almost dying from the RV slide pushing out on the Sea to Sky.
Oh yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of bonding experiences when you almost die. Yeah, that's good.
No, but that's good to know, because again, I'd like to talk about that. Again, like you said before, maintaining and building those relationships with your team to to be successful.
Yeah.
Do you guys, is there a trick that you guys do, or is there at some point in your career where you realize, hey, I actually, like you said, you were more of an introvert before. Was there something that made you realize, hey, I actually am kind of personable, and I am finding these ways to communicate with people in a way that is productive?
No, I still believe I'm an introvert. I just push myself beyond my boundaries all the time. I mean, I honestly think it is, you know, the kind of these, it doesn't have to be outside of work activities. It could be inside of work. Like we do right now at the place next door, we have a burger challenge where they do smash burgers and we see how many patties can one person eat in a sitting. The current record is up to 15.
There's a 16 attempt happening though. I think tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes.
And I mean, like we have a trophy in the office for that, right? And I mean, like things like that, like going to Whistler in the RV, or you know, things like that, and making sure that you do bond that way. Like I think that's important, right?
Yeah, I really don't think there's a cheat sheet. Like I think it's just a matter of, you know, you need to instill on the people that you're working with that you care about them, and that they care about you, and you know, you just need to put the time in to build that relationship. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Just taking, even just like you said before, just in the office, just like taking a small interest in their lives. Hey, how are you? How was your day? Did you do anything interesting?
Yeah.
Like even just a small hobby of talking about that will get them maybe even a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, like I don't do it on purpose, but there's tons of times where I'll go over and to talk to someone about work, and we get sidetracked for like 15 to 20 minutes talking about the most random stuff. Like what are the dumbest dinosaur names? And we're spending 15 minutes Googling it. Right. And just like, and then it's like, okay, that just wasted 20 minutes. Okay. I actually came over here for a reason. Right. And just a
Corn dog, a soup, a salad, or a sandwich.
It's a sandwich. How dare you?
How many times has that debate happened?
It's
Too many to count.
Yeah.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, looking to the future, as it's obviously an exciting time for you guys in the Kelowna office and everything. What is the vision for each of your groups? What do you envision for the future?
Well, I don't know. Growth, I guess. It's
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Vision. I mean, in terms of engineering, there's endless opportunity. It's beautiful. Like the thing about engineering that I love is like you can do literally anything. There are so many opportunities. Like even not in consulting. Like I just had a ski weekend with some of my university friends, and like one guy is he's doing estimating. One guy's working in nuclear power. One guy is working in water treatment and process design. One guy's not doing engineering at all. It's like there's so many different things that you can do, and even into our internal departments here, there are so many ways that we can branch out and do other things, and it's so exciting.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's it. Is above all else, you know, making sure everyone is happy. I think that's a big thing too. Is that because again, like I like coming to work and I like doing the things that I do. Largely part of the people that are there as well, right? That I like everyone that I work with. And so if everyone's miserable, then that's not going to make work very fun. That's
not going to make you very happy either.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
You don't want to see other people leaving the office sulking with their shoulders down.
Yeah, if we can't maintain that culture, we've completely failed, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to touch on now is maintaining that small firm feel. I know Aplin has been very proud of that, is that not everybody knows each other. It's a very large company, but that you're able to pick up the phone and able to actually talk to somebody, or even just a Teams message and stuff like that, and don't be scared to do that. How have you guys personally tried to keep that alive within your team as it's still growing?
I mean, I think other than, you know, we've been fortunate where we've been extremely busy over the past, I don't know, seems like forever, but and part of that, you know, we do from time to time need help or support from the other offices, and at times when we're slow, we'll help and support them. So I think that's been good, you know, being able to do the work sharing thing and, you know, work with someone from Edmonton, work from someone from Surrey Land Dev or something like that has been good. But I mean, I think overall to kind of maintain that, you know, small firm feel, I think the one important thing, and I think it's, I mean, a big part of our culture as well, is that the firm stays kind of privately owned by people who are very passionate, because as part of that, those people will likely be the leaders. They'll instill the same passion that they have for the company into it, right? If we all of a sudden become a publicly traded megalacorp, then it's all the humanity kind of is going to go out the window, right? It's just going to be about numbers. It's not going to be about people. It's just going to be, you know, how much money did you make? And if you didn't make this target, you're gone, and someone else is going to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're all just people, right? Like at the end of the day, like we just need to maintain that culture. Like as we grow, we need to completely change the way we do business. Like I can't remember the past 5 years of project numbers anymore because there's hundreds. Like it's impossible. Yeah. We need to figure out new ways that we can do business. But at the same time, we need to be having that personal experience with our teammates, with our clients. Yeah. And like, that's one of the things that makes Aplin so strong.
Yeah. So, well, and I think also the shift from, being siloed office locations to actual business groups has been pretty beneficial as well, right? Because then, when it was siloed, you're using just this one location.
10 people, that's it.
Yeah, and you're responsible for those 10 people, and that's all you care about, right? Where it's still somewhat the same because obviously you care about, your business group or your office more, but I think it promotes a lot more of that collaboration. And also with us being, more multidisciplinary than we were, 5-10 years ago, has also been because now we have the opportunity to work with people who are not in the same business group that we are in, right?
Yeah, your eyes are just immediately open to all these other things that, working locally you aren't exposed to, right? Yeah,
or all the terrors that come with lift stations and why Liam and Terrence always had to avoid them.
That's a good treasures I'd like to know now. I want to talk a little bit about some of the stories and some of the experiences that you guys have had over the past little bit that you guys are working. Can you give me one story, like your welcome to consulting moment, where you realized, oh shit, this is I'm now in the big time. I'm dealing with big developers. I'm dealing with a lot of people. One time you felt overwhelmed and that there was a lesson that you learned from it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bazillion examples here because I think like there's been so many big things that I've felt like were such a big deal that ended up not being a big deal, or something that I didn't think was a big deal and ended up being a big deal.
Are those fun?
But like I think one of the big ones that I've been working on is a water main project out in Revelstoke, and we realized we're doing calculations and stuff that like some of these water mains and things are going to have pressures of like 400 psi, 350 psi, and it's like, wait a second, aren't we creating a bomb in the ground? Like, surely there's some risks involved with this thing, right? And just looking at a project like that and just realizing that, this is like all on my shoulders. Like, as an engineer, like you're the person that's effectively responsible for this thing, and you need to make sure it's done right. So
yeah, I guess you could say the scale of projects as they've escalated, and then dealing with, again, like much larger infrastructure than when you first started with that two lot subdivision.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been definitely a lot like that, if you've worked through, and either, like you said, you thought they were a big deal and they weren't, or you just kind of dealt with them and worked through them, and none really stick out as much for me as the time when I was fairly junior still like an engineering designer, and at that time, I think I was the most senior person in the office at that time, because it was probably on a Friday or in the afternoon, people are out for meetings and stuff like that. Yeah. And a representative from the city came down, and he wanted to talk to someone because he was not too happy that a contractor has started work on a project that we were the civil engineers on. We weren't the contract administrator. The contractor was subbed directly by the owner, and the owner basically said, go ahead, but they didn't have the proper permits in place. And we didn't really have much control. Like, we asked, like, hey, before we head out to site or do anything, like, make sure your plumbing permits are in place, make sure everything is in place. And they just said, yeah, no, we're just going to go ahead and start working. So naturally, we still go out to site and we do our inspections, because we're like, well, we want to make sure they're like putting in stuff actually as per the design, or doing it as per the spec and stuff like that. And the city took that as, I guess at that time, that we were allowing them to do it. Even
you gave them the
and so he came in and proceeded to yell at me for probably about 30 to 40 minutes, I want to say. I don't think I got more than 5 words in. And this is also a project I wasn't really involved in either. And then he just kind of left after that. And I was like, all right, cool.
So that can happen at times.
Meanwhile, he's like a junior, like engineering designer. Like, it's like,
so that one always sticks out to me. And I don't know, I guess the moral of that is that you're probably going to get yelled at.
Yeah, you're going to deal with some of those.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest learning moments for me in my career is just, people are going to yell at you. People are going to be upset with you. And, it might happen daily. Yeah. It might happen every hour. But, you can't take it to heart. Like, you can't take it home. Like, an hour from now, they're not going to be yelling at me. we're going to get through it. Right. And, I don't think I've ever had a situation where we haven't figure out a way through it. So, you know, it's going to work out.
Yeah, always I always try to keep composed, depending on even if the situation is like something happens that's not in favorable in your or for your team, right? Just make sure you're able to maintain composure because there are people that still rely on you at the end of the day, right? So if you're showing a little bit of panic per se or something like that, then they're most definitely going to be a little bit uneasy.
Yeah. Big thing being a manager is be prepared for bad news because it's always around the corner. So
it seems like every time you get good news and you're riding a high,
it doesn't matter how well you do your job, something's going to happen, right? So.
Yeah, that's good. That's funny. Now, the overall arching topic of this one being leaders, I'd like to know if there was somebody or a role model or a leader that you guys have looked up to and that you've tried to maybe model yourself after, if there's a lesson that you've learned from them, whether it was an athlete, celebrity, family member, somebody in your life or outside of your life that you've always looked up to that you've thought that you want to model yourself after.
I mean, I think from a work perspective, you know, it kind of stems to the fact that, you know, I followed Ben over from Focus, and I think I've been pretty lucky to work under him for the past, you know, 11 years and learned definitely a lot about leadership from him. So that's been a big one from a work perspective. And then the other one that I always find is, actually, this is going to sound pretty cheesy, but it's my wife. And the reason being is that I've always tend to think of myself as a bit pessimistic. And, you know, I'm always like, oh, this, you know, look at the bad side of things and stuff like that. And she's so goddamn optimistic that it actually drove me nuts when we first started dating. So I was like, how can anyone be like this happy all the time? Yeah. It's ridiculous. And like, yeah, and she still is. It's crazy. But like my favorite quip is that like we were driving through traffic and I was getting pissed off because, you know, I'm stuck in traffic and there's people.
Red light.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, like people just get out of the way, like learn how to drive. And she's like, there's someone like weaving in and out and stuff like that. And I was like, look at this jackass doing this, right? She's like, well, maybe he just has to poop really bad. Like that's why he's in a hurry. So, and I think about that all the time, and like kind of one of those things where someone's being an asshole. I'm like, maybe they just have to shit real bad.
Yeah,
maybe that's why, right? So I found that helped a lot.
I don't know if it's a difficult question. I don't know if I have any like major standouts. I like to think that I try and take the best parts of the people that I interact with a lot. You know, first thing that kind of comes to mind is realistically just my family, like internal role models, like my dad, for example, like always willing to be there and help out somebody, right? You know, provide support as needed. My sister probably instilled a lot of my logical thinking and stuff like that. She was a kid that I think she frequently told our parents that she could never shut her brain off. And I think I'm the same way, in that like I'm always thinking about something and, you know, always trying to, you know, figure out the solution to a problem. And yeah, I don't know if I have any other ones, but.
No, that's a good one. Again, like the support system that you have at home that you're able to, again, take with you to the office and instill maybe even some of those values into your team there.
100%, yeah.
So I'd like to end off with this one then, again, with the overarching topic being teamwork and leadership and all of that. What part of your team and job keeps making coming back to not only just Kelowna, but again to that office now that you guys have both been there for, again, almost a decade each now, right? It'll be coming up there a couple of times.
Getting old.
Yeah. But there's a reason why you guys kept going back, not only again to the same location, but to the job, right? So is there something, what is that makes you keep doing that?
We're not supposed to say money again, right? No, I mean, I think overall it's honestly, it's people that we work with. Like, I know for me, it's, you know, I've always said that I've been very fortunate to have a job that I truly enjoy. And I think that's been a big part of, like, I mean, before working for Aplin, the longest I'd ever worked for any company in my entire life was 2 years. After 2 years, I usually got fed up with either the people or the job. And I was like, yeah, I need to try something a little different. I just need to change the scenery. Yeah. And I've never felt that here. So, and I think that's almost entirely due to the people that we have. And I think it goes a long way too, is that, you know, not only do we have a long tenure, but there's a lot of people that we work with too that have been with us for, you know, 6-7 years.
Yeah, we have a core group that started in our sketchy Leon office, and like, yeah, they all stuck around, and like, you know, we've been, you know, growing together. And I think like one of the big things that's made us successful too is just, you know, peer learning. Like I don't think that we're finding ourselves where we're like looking to external sources, people that are, you know, more experienced to try and find solutions to problems. Like we work together. Like I say, like I bug Josh every day. He's probably super annoyed with me by this point, but you don't have the answer to everything. And, you learn the most from your peers, I think, is one big one.
Yeah, consistently paying attention and actually listening to, not just tuning it out for the sake of having a conversation, quote unquote, but listening, taking part in it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been huge having that collaboration. Like I said, like even when Jordan was talking earlier about like the ability to stand up and yell, like we do that all the time. Well, okay, maybe just me, but like it's a really good atmosphere to have in the office, right? Because like when Jordan mentioned that, like he bugs me all the time, I'm doing it, I guarantee, just as much, if not more.
Yeah, showing the level of comfort and being able to maintain that relationship, right?
Or even just like, you just want to rationalize that you're not going insane and you're like, hey, am I completely wrong in this? Or can you like validate me a little bit?
Can you like poke holes in this, please?
Yeah,
like tell me it doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think that's been huge.
Awesome. Well, I think that's great that you guys I'm very grateful you guys were both able to share your knowledge and your experience for that today. That's all we have. I want to thank Jordan and Josh again for their time today. Again, thank you to our listeners and have a great day.